How's it going out there, YouTube? My name is Jesse, and I am back for another comic book video. And this is like one of the most awesome Oscar the Grouch shirts ever. See, Oscar the Grouch with muscles, steroid muscles. Yeah, it's an awesome shirt. Anyways, in this video, I'm going to be covering, it's another installment of Heroes That You Thought You Knew, and I'm going to be covering a number of them. Now, two of the heroes that I'm going to mention on here, I have actually covered one in-depthly, and I've mentioned a number of times before, so I will briefly go over them in this video. One of the ones that I'm going to be talking about, actually another hero appeared under this name that I didn't know about at the time, or I would have covered him originally when I covered this first one. And there is another hero, two heroes who've had the name before the guy who currently has the name. So we're going to go ahead and get into those heroes. Let's see, it's Quicksilver. I've covered Quicksilver before, so I'm not going to go into depth to him, but there's another hero that goes by the name of Quicksilver. We're also going to be doing Valkyrie, two people who have had the name Falcon, and Captain Marvel. Now, I'm not going to go too much in depth in Captain Marvel. I have mentioned him in a number of different videos, so I'll briefly go over him. I mentioned, I went pretty in depth on his powers in, let's see, Captain Marvel. I covered him in the top 20 DC heroes that you thought you knew part 2. He was one of the top 10 heroes I mentioned. I also mentioned Captain Marvel in the 10 DC comic book heroes that did not start in DC comic books, and I also mentioned the Captain Marvel lawsuit, which was a result of Fawcett Comics shutting down its comic book department. I don't know if it ended Fawcett altogether. So let's go over these heroes. Two Quicksilvers, two Falcons, Valkyrie, and Captain Marvel. Let's get started. The first Quicksilver, when he first appeared, his name was unknown, his identity was unknown. He first appeared in National Comics number 5 in 1940 as part of Quality Comics. He would later be given a name when he joined the DC universe. For a full rundown of Quicksilver, check the Golden Age Spotlight video where I go a little more in depth on Quicksilver. Quicksilver first appeared in Roundup Comics, Children's Press, 1948. I can't find specifically which comic book he appeared in, or I can't really find a whole lot about him at all. I just recently found out about him, and he is a British superhero, so finding the information is a little sketchy. His real name is unrevealed, his identity is unrevealed. He is also known as the Wonder Man of the West, and why he is called Quicksilver, I don't know. He does have the ability to fly, and he's bulletproof. He also has the ability to extend his powers to others to do exceptional feats, like he was able to make a stallion make amazing leaps for whatever reason. In this comic book, he is a protector of the wildlife in the Wild West. He lives on the prairie, and he fights off rustlers and other villains. That's really all I can find about him. The next hero that we will cover in this list is the Falcon. His real name is unrevealed, his identity is unrevealed, and he is created by Jack Binder. First appeared in Pet Comics number 1 in 1940. It sounds like somebody I would have covered in MLJ month if I had gotten around to it. He is a good fighter, and he's the Falcon, so I'm assuming he can fly. Now, the Falcon had only one appearance, and that would be Pep Comics #1. Now, there are some sites that say that the Falcon is Flash Cavalette, which is not possible because in his one and only appearance, he actually rescued Flash that was being tied up by the Slug Wickman game. So Flash Cavalette, or Cavert, I'm not sure, is actually the one person that he cannot be. It is possible that he ditched the Falcon costume and dressed up as the Press Guardian who appeared in Pep Comics #2, but that's just a theory. Coming in next on this list is the Falcon, real name unknown. His first appearance was in Radio Fun Comics. Now, I'm not actually sure in which Radio Fun comic he started in, because the Falcon would first appear in 1947, and the first issue of Radio Fun came out in 1938. So this was just about, 10 years after, almost 10 years after it first premiered. And the Falcon would run in Radio Fun all the way until 1960. And the last issue of Radio Fun ended in February of 1961 after an impressive 1,167 issues. So the Falcon wasn't there from the beginning, but he was there for a large majority of it, from 1947 to 1960. As many heroes as that appeared in the Golden Age, he has no superpowers. He is a skilled fighter and a master of disguise, being a former secret agent. He also has wings on his suit that allows him the ability to fly. So the Falcon started off as a criminal and a nemesis for Inspector Stanley when he first started in the Radio Fun, and he would later gain his own strip in 1949 where he would become a secret agent. Apparently he had adventures on other planets. Whether or not he actually started off on Earth is unclear. There's no real way of telling. I don't have any of the stories. In 1957, that's when he would get his superhero costume, and then he would be the Falcon. Apparently, in 2003, the BBC radio website did a programming about Radio Fun, and they did a dramatization of one of the Falcon stories in 3 parts. Next on this list is Valkyrie. Valkyrie Lesloniet von Sheldendorf. I probably just butchered the hell out of that name. First appeared in Airfighter Comics V2 #2 in 1943. This was by Hillman Publication. She did not have any superpowers. She was a skilled pilot, and she was partnered to Airboy Davy Nelson II, and also Airboy Davy Nelson III. Valkyrie was a top pilot for the Germans in World War II, and she led an all-female flying squad known as the Air Maidens. Later, when she would cross paths with Airboys many times, and she would eventually switch sides due to Airboy's influence. Now, apparently, she had a relationship with Airboy. And it says that after the war, Valkyrie was frozen by a spell that kept her in suspended animation for 3 decades. When she finally woke up, she found out that the first Airboy, who she was in love with, was dead, and she teams up with Airboy's son, who looked exactly like his father, which is convenient, and they both became allies. And now, Captain Marvel. Real name, Billy Batson. First appeared in Whiz Comics number 2 in 1940. I've gone over Captain Marvel a number of times. Also known as Shazam when he came to DC, because they couldn't use the name Captain Marvel because it was copyrighted by Marvel Comic Books. I go into that in when I reviewed Fawcett Comics. Also, I go pretty in depth in the Fawcett Comics. I covered the lawsuit pretty well. In the Marvel, or in the DC Top 20 Heroes of the Golden Age Part 2, where I go over Captain Marvel, I go pretty into detail about the powers that was bestowed to him by the gods, basically. The fact in DC, how he appears in Fawcett City, which Fawcett Comic Books was the publication that produced Captain Marvel, how he works at WHIZ Radio, which it was Whiz Comics number 2. Actually, I talk a bit about Fawcett City in my DC's Cities Tour video, which is one of my early videos. So I've covered Captain Marvel and his city and his appearance pretty well. So if you want to see those videos to get a lot more about Captain Marvel, you can do that. But this is the original Captain Marvel before Shazam and before Captain Marvel in Marvel Comics. Well, I hope you enjoyed this video. I sure enjoy making them. One of these days, I really want to get into a really good video on Captain Marvel. It's just that his history in Fawcett Comic Books is already pretty expansive. And then with him moving to the DC universe, just increases the hero even more. Now, if I do an expose on Captain Marvel, an in-depth thing, it will just be the Golden Age Fawcett comic books that I do a review of. But still, there is a lot of history just surrounding that. So maybe one of these days I'll get into Captain Marvel. Hey, someone puts in a request, I'll do it sooner than later. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed this video. And I should be able to have one more video for the month, maybe 2 depending on my time, of heroes that you thought you knew. So until then, I'll be seeing you.